All right, good afternoon. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm Rich Barris, People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them and share them far and wide. All right. This is just like gonna be weird because this is the first election in modern memory where we have a dynamic like this playing out. I have like 10 things that I wanted to read. We're obviously not going to get to that. So I'm going to try to pick maybe what is the top 3 or so. Listen. Okay. Uh Before we even get into it, because we're going to have to, for people who don't know, I'm going to blaze through the tranches again, but we don't even have that clear of a picture. And before on the polling front, or not even that clear, it doesn't seem to be comporting with the tranches in the traditional way that it normally does. Either way, all I'm going to say here is in front of the backdrop of this. If you are the Democratic nominee and you are tied in the Muhlenberg College state poll in Pennsylvania in September, you're in deep shit. If you are the Democratic nominee and you are tied in the the Quinnipiac poll, which missed every single battleground state, the Quinnipiac poll that overstated Democratic support in every single battleground state in the last 2 presidential election cycles, in the Quinnipiac poll that overstates Democratic support by nearly 10 points nationally, in the Quinnipiac poll that hasn't called North Carolina and Florida correctly in the last, God, I don't think it ever did. I kid you not. I don't think it is that left leaning. If you are up 1 point in the CNN poll, if you are down in in every Sun Belt state, especially the ones, 3 of them, that Joe Biden won in 2020, and your campaign is basically coming to the conclusion in September, on September 25th, that they're gone for you, you're in deep trouble. It's amazing to me still how you could go to Real Clear Politics and read a handful of people who seem to get it. And then at the top of the page is still somebody like Chuck Todd pretending like his poll and only his poll is correct. His poll, along with Morning Consult and others, are going to be in one school that we're going to talk about today. His poll and the Morning Consult poll are becoming a minority. And they are the only 2 polls that predicted that Democrats would win the House vote for the popular vote for the U.S. House in 22. So not only, hold on now a second, because this is important. Not only have they not accurately predicted the presidential vote, not only that, by the way, they also ran with Tony Boner's target fart data in 2016 that claimed 28% of Republicans were going to vote for Hillary Clinton. I mean, this is how insane some of these people have had their records, all right? They not only haven't been able to accurately gauge Trump's support, which is one thing in and of itself, but they didn't even share in the benefit of some of these other polls that we're going to discuss in 22, the benefit of the realignment, which is the first midterm when this new coalition change impacted public polling and caused some people to miss. All right. Why is that? Because first-time voters and low propensity voters for the first time in my lifetime are very Trumpy. They're very Republican, period. It has always been the case that higher turnout, more turnout with low prop and no prop was good news for Democrats. That is not the case anymore. And in truth, in 2016, we could start to see that already, that realignment already starting to bubble beneath the surface. And it wasn't a good sign, despite Tony Boner and the Frank Luntzes and the Nate Silvers and the Nate Cohns and the David Wassermans and all the other election mafiosos on election day and looking at the exit polls going, oh, that's it. Hillary Clinton won. When few of us were looking at the actual data and polled the election correctly and could tell that there were people coming out of the woodwork and we really didn't know who they were. Most of these other pollsters screened them out because they didn't believe them. No, I haven't voted in 4 elections, or I haven't voted at all, and I'm coming out and I'm voting for Trump. Yeah, okay, whatever. Now we're seeing this again. And you can look at Virginia, you can look at some of the data in North Carolina and in Pennsylvania. The first time voter numbers should terrify Democrats, terrify them. And in any event, you have, let's just break it down real quick because we do have a guest coming on today and I don't really have a whole lot of time, or at least a whole lot of, as much time as I'd like before. And yes, I'm a little sick again. These kids just keep bringing home the cruds, man. Oh, by the way, happy birthday to Laura. Anyway, we basically forget about the tranches. We have 2 schools of thought. I'm sorry, I'm so sick and I'm working my butt off, so I'm not sleeping. We have 2 schools here that have emerged since we went over the tranches again. All right. You have a bearish tranche, which repeatedly reports favorable results to a candidate, but they're often softer than the consensus. This is always measured against the consensus. And also, the support for their opponents or opponent is consistently stronger than the consensus has. Nevertheless, they're still polling the election favorable to one candidate or project that one candidate is going to win, and it means they are in the bearish tranche. All right. Now, they can be in both directions. There could be a Trump bearish tranche and a Harris bearish tranche. All right. Just remember that because there are more than 2 because you have to have it on both sides. All right. And then obviously, what would we think of bullish tranches, right? Repeatedly reporting favorable results that are often stronger to that particular candidate. Not only that, but against the consensus, the support that they measure for the opponent is weaker. All right. And why do we do this? Because tranches have an ability to ID both trends and biases in a polling company or a university media polling outfit, whatever it may be, anyone, any polling outfit. And this real, clear picture has emerged. You have group 1 or school 1. It basically is polling the race more favorable to Harris. By the way, it's a shrinking tranche. Okay. It is polling more favorable to Harris. And no, I cannot do that. I have something I have to do it for work after. I guess I can because it's 2:35. Yeah, I guess I can. It's just remember I'm sorry, I'm talking to Laura. I'm just remember I have Battleground with Sean Parnell. Don't forget, guys. 5:00. So in between, I have to somehow get this thing done. It shouldn't be difficult, but I just want to make sure I get the right number before I tell them. Okay. It's a lot of data. That's a lot of data, and I want to make sure it's right. All right. So I micromanage everything. I micromanage everything. I had one employee that I really loved to death that I felt like I could give some of these tasks that I trust only to myself to. Very bright kid. I love him to death. I mean, he's a grown ass man. I'm going to continuously call him kid because I met him at a speech I gave years and years ago, and he was a kid. He was still in college. So he'll always be a kid to me. Yeah, he'll always be a kid to me, babe. Always, I mean, anyway, I think I lost him to the G-men. So he can't work for me anymore, which blows. Or he didn't go there? Ooh, really? Well, we'll discuss this after because in any event, very, very smart guy. And let's get back to the picture of the polling here, shall we? All right. So this is a shrinking tranche. They're polling the race for Harris, but they're polling the race in unbelievable numbers. Chuck Todd's organization falls into this category. And Steve, I love you, my man. You do a good job over there. I don't know how you do what you do over at MSNBC without getting fired, probably because you're grandfathered in. Your colleagues are nutcases who live in alternative realities. And I love you, my man. I love you. But your poll sucks. It does. All right. Your poll projected that Democrats would win the popular vote last cycle. They did not. Before that, your poll never found a Republican leading for president ever. And if that is in the modern era, if that is true, then that's on you. You understand? You feel me, bro? You feel me? Where's your outliers? Where are your outliers? 19 out of 20 polls should be relatively normal. One should not be. Where's your freaking outlier? You don't have one outlier that said Trump was going to win over the last, 10 years? Not one? You've polled all these different battleground states. You consistently overstated Democratic support in like every single one of them. Your poll sucks, Steve. Of course, I'm talking to Steve Kornacki. Your poll blows donkey, you know what, dude. And he should be fired. They should be fired. They suck. Anywho, when Biden was down 8 points in the New York Times poll in some of these battleground states, he's down nationally in the New York Times poll. Hell, even in the CNN poll and the Fox News polls, even though Fox was bearish, more bearish. NBC News is still Biden +2. They finally get a Trump +1 after Gary Langer pops a Trump +12 or something, or Trump +10 at ABC. Then they get a Trump +1. That's how strong of an anti-Trump bias is. I'm using NBC as an example, but the truth is the rest of them in this school or in this tranche they're no different. There's morning consults. I mean, do we really have to go through this again? Okay. There's the Reuters poll. Do we have to go through this again? I mean, they're consistently the worst pollsters of the cycle over and over and over again. Quinnipiac and Marist were also in this tranche, also in this school, and now they're starting to lose pollsters like Quinnipiac and Marist, which are basically showing tied races to maybe a Harris +1, or in Quinnipiac's case, a Trump +1 on the full ballot. And why does any of this matter? I mean, one school is filled with a bunch of pollsters that have massive anti-Republican bias track records, terrible track records, have consistently overstated Democratic support, especially when Trump is on the ballot, especially, and are showing races that are just wholly unbelievable. Folks, if you think Harris is going to win the popular vote by 6 points, I got a bridge to sell you. All right, whatever the hell the old expression is. I bet your grandfather still owns a piece of the Verrazano. It's not going to happen. Just like she was never going to outperform Joe Biden with white non-college voters, or any non-college voters for that matter. Scranton Joe versus Canadian Kamala. Remember? And then you have the other school, which is showing, and I can't even put them in like multiple categories because the one we just went over with NBC and Morning Consult and some of these others, Reuters, because of course Ipsos is the worst online panel available to any pollster out there. They are in another realm. They're not only showing showing Harris with an advantage, but it's an advantage that's not believable. And then you have the other school, which consists of people who are polling, a tiny Harris edge here, a tiny Trump, but all believable margins, showing a very close race. See, I'm tempted to put them in traditional tranches and then give you and break that down for you. But the truth of the matter is that's not really how you should be looking at it right now. And why am I doing this? Because I get 100 texts a day. What do you think of the polls? Where do you think where we're at? Where do you think things stand? What about this poll? What about that poll? Here is how you should look at it. There are two schools of thought. One is bullish on Harris and is giving unbelievable, literally by the definition of the word, unrealistic, unbelievable margins, painting a picture that is never going to happen. Like Kamala Harris is going to do better against Donald Trump than Barack Obama did against Mitt Romney. Okay, that's what they want you to believe. That's the picture they are painting. And oh, by the way, those polls suck. They have horrible track records, despite what the media calls them, high quality, gold standard, all these other buzzwords that are really just censorship tools. They are used to censor better pollsters who make them look stupid year after year after year, who just aren't in the cool club. Let me tell you all a little secret. Soon, we're going to do the national poll this weekend. And then we'll do the big three. I'm actually hoping we can do the big three at the same time. I'm polling Nevada right now. I had a question from another pollster who was like, hey, are you polling Nevada? Let me show you something, or let me tell you something. What do you think of this? The funny thing is, and by the way, I think that's Mark Mitchell, Rasmussen has a bunch of other stuff coming out too. Funny stuff is, we just happen to be polling the state of Nevada. We have Donald Trump ahead in Clark County by 2 points. She's getting smoked with independents. White voters, which were actually in our last Nevada poll, like too Democratic, are now like overwhelmingly Republican. Trumpy, in fact, because Sam Brown's just not doing that well. He's just not. I don't know. Maybe that'll change later, but Democrats are running kind of a disgraceful campaign there. They're doing something that's subliminal. It's working. I would have probably told them to do it too if I was a scumbag with no soul who didn't have any standards or morals and work for them. That's why I don't like to work for campaigns. So I don't know how you win Clark County. I don't know how you win the state of Nevada as a Democrat when you're losing Clark County. He is leading in Washoe County by 8 points, which is the county Robert and I were discussing on Monday for a reason, because Robert knew I was going to poll the state. And I'm like, the only way I can see if he's really going to be doing this well in Clark, that she hangs on in that state, is if she wins Washoe because of educated whites. How's she doing with educated whites? The answer is not that good at all. Black voters are not as big enough of a share as they are in some of the other states, and she's not even doing that well among them. I mean, she's doing, obviously, winning them, but Trump's getting a decent 14% of the black vote in that state. The problem is that Hispanics are 50-50. And if Hispanics are 50-50 and Trump is winning the white vote, he is going to smoke her in the state of Nevada. We'll keep you posted and see whether or not that holds. But that's where we're at right now. After 2 days, be interesting to keep going. Again, by the way, new and never voted Trump plus 13. So, you have, again, and even if I ended up, maybe this thing ends up like Trump plus 3 or something. Again, you're not really seeing unbelievable results in that other school of thought. You're seeing defendable results, whether they have Harris a little ahead or Trump a little ahead. And oh, by the way, the private polls mirror school of thought number 2 that is not very bullish on Harris at all. Yes, that's right. Trump's polling and the Harris polling mirror those of us. Oh, and by the way, school of thought number 2 also has a bunch of pollsters that have done a good job, especially when Trump is on the ballot, which is pretty important, don't you think? Even the CNN poll, when you look at the CNN poll, you know what jumps out at me immediately? Same thing I saw with Quinnipiac, same thing I saw with the New York Times. Even in these polls that are good for Trump, they're understating his share of the white vote. We're going to understate his share of the white vote. Telling you right now, we're going to do it. It's going to happen with us because it happens every damn year, right? Every year. Right, babe? No matter how much we oversample this group, oversample that. That's why we always harp on ethnicity. So important. We always harp on it. Trump is doing as good with people who call themselves English descent. Oh, yeah. He's doing as good with them as he was doing with those who call themselves American when you ask about their ethnicity in 2020. So this year, among those who are English, which he got stomped with, again, Biden stomped him with this group of white voters. Trump is now doing as good with them as he did with those who self-described as American in 2020. And in fact, he's only doing marginally better among those who call themselves American this year. That tells me we're probably going to understate his share of the white vote because even though Biden did do well with that English ethnicity, we did in 2020 anyway. All right. Two things I want to read here, which will help you. So basically, my answer to these people, all right, to the million of people that I get a damn text message from or DM or anything, and then even you folks who ask online, where do I think things stand? Well, you have to ask yourself something. Is school of thought number one, which again is filled with a bunch of pollsters with shitty track records, especially in the Trump era, especially with Trump on the ballot, showing unbelievable margins that again, not only are they not defendable polls, the work is not defendable, but they're unbelievable. They're not realistic. Are they right? And by the way, they're shrinking quick. It'll soon be Reuters, NBC, and Morning Consult all by their lonesome, since Quinnipiac just jumped ship yesterday. And then you have a bunch of other pollsters. So they want to make it out like it's right wing versus left wing, or right wing versus credible, or right wing versus high quality, whatever buzzword they have, which again is just censorship. The truth be told, that's not true. That's not even true anymore, because school of thought number 2 now, or group 2, right? They now include even polls who have understated Trump support badly in the past. The New York Times, Quinnipiac, Fox News, CNN. It's like all of them versus the people who are pumping up Harris's numbers and the averages with ridiculous polls. Folks, the Muhlenberg College poll is tied, folks. You want to go take a trip down memory lane, and somebody please tell me how much they had Hillary Clinton winning that state by in 2016. I'll give you a hint. It's double digits. Fast forward to 2020. Were they any less bullish on Biden? Mm-mm. And now it is tied at 48. Yes. So we're all wrong, and Harris is running away with this thing. And this group of shitty pollsters, again, Steve, I'm sorry, man. I like you, but your polls suck. NBC, Morning Consult, which you just closed its doors. You guys pull another Democrat plus 5 or 6 and miss, you should just close your doors. I mean, it's like, but that's the media world for you. All right. If you're not thrown in the right-wing ghetto or labeled low quality, you could be fired from Politico from polling terribly and end up at Bloomberg News anyway. You're going to still get a client. It doesn't matter. You're in the club. So Politico was like, whoa, that was a 10-point miss. No, thank you. We'll be doing something else next year, please. Thank you very much. Pleasure doing business with you. No renewal on your contract. You walk 5 blocks up the road and get a job with Bloomberg. Track record doesn't matter. And they're still going to call them high quality. So think about that. All right. Meanwhile, yes, we're all wrong. And things like this are going on. All right. This doesn't happen. Pardon me while I blow my nose. Trump won the Notre Dame poll. Oh, yeah. Wait till you see the margin in 2020. Why does this matter? These are young Catholics, educated young Catholics. This is supposed to be a Democratic constituency now, and in fact, has been for a while. She can't win these Catholics? Then tell me. Tell me, where? What Catholics? Who? The Italians in Bucks County? The Irish? The 2 wards in Philadelphia? They're going back to Harris like it's going to be the Obama coalition again? I don't think so. Pardon me for 1 second. I mean, honestly, it really is like a layup for a Democrat to win these polls. Between this and the Teamsters, this is why You got people like Mark Halpern and others talking with these Democratic consultants, talking with the team, and they're very concerned. Now, don't get me wrong, there are Republicans who are also concerned, but these are Republicans that typically, and look, I'll be honest with you, I agree with some of the stuff they say. Trump is just very unpredictable, and he can step on his toe in a heartbeat and change the conversation after he is Trump loves to make a wave when the boat stops rocking, and everyone's be like, all right, let's make Trump the captain of this ship. Hold on, let me make a great big wave first. Get everybody to start puking and then question my captainship. What the hell do you call it? Is that a word? Captainship? You guys know what I mean. The seasick voter thesis. All right. It applies still today. All right. Now you may say, but Rich, it's only 2 points. It is, but wait until you see what it was last time. Okay. Notre Dame students preferred Donald Trump over Kamala Harris in the 2024 U.S. presidential election, a new Irish Rover poll of 705 students found. As the race moves into its final months, the finding highlights a campus more politically divided than at any time in recent history. Of course, it's politically divided now. Well, I guess that's true. I mean, because Biden crushed Trump by 30 points in this poll. Oh, yeah, 30 points. Quite the swing, don't you think? Among likely voters, the president leads the vice president 47.6 to 45.9, with Green Party nominee Jill Stein getting only 0.6%, while Libertarian Chase Oliver got 0.3%. And 5.5% indicated that they supported a candidate who was not listed on the ballot. I'm going to say a lot of those are probably RFK voters, maybe Cornell West, right? I mean, I imagine, though, at Notre Dame, you probably are not looking at a whole lot of West voters. But for sure, a Kennedy? Yeah, probably. It's like for people who said that the Kennedy endorsement didn't have an impact, I honest to God just don't know how you can say that with a straight face. It was done in spectacular Hollywood fashion, very convincing. Or I would argue better than Hollywood fashion because it's anti-Tinseltown, anti-status quo, anti-establishment. It basically gave a big middle finger to Tinseltown and it gave a big middle finger to the ruling class. He's another class betrayer now. Put Kennedy on the list. The guy's going to have to run around in body armor for the rest of his life. By the way, I'm just saying this out loud. Better get ready for assassination attempt number 3 because Trump's numbers, regardless of what they try to tell you in these crappy Reuters polls and NBC News polls, all right, they're too strong. Get ready for assassination attempt number 3 here. It's coming. I'm sorry. I didn't want to tell you number 2 was coming. By the way, Parnell and I are going to talk about this a little bit later. Oh, man, that Pennsylvania race tightened quick for the U.S. Senate. I'll tell you that. That's another thing. Very, very tight now. If accurate, the results of the survey would mark the first time in over a decade, by the way, that Notre Dame students have preferred the Republican Party's nominee for president. The findings would also signify a monumental shift towards the former president from his showing at Notre Dame just 4 years ago. In 2020, Joe Biden had the support. Oh, I'm sorry. I understated it. 66% of Notre Dame students in a poll conducted by Student Government and ND votes, while Trump got just 29%. In 2016, Hillary Clinton beat Trump in a similar poll by a margin of 59 to 24. So if this thing is at all predictive of how, Catholic vote swings, I mean, if you were to extrapolate that data, you're looking at, I mean, it's one data point and it's a stretch to do this, but it is one more anecdote, to put on top of all of the other anecdotes that we have. The Teamsters poll, right? Like, I told you she was going to do worse than Hillary Clinton with a series of voters, to include white working class voters. She's going to do worse with them. When asked for his club's reaction to the poll, College Republicans President Elliot Anderson told the Rover, quote, "It is amazing to see a college campus stand by President Trump. We hope that the trend of ultra-liberal colleges is finally coming to an end with this increasing youth support for conservative policies." College Democrats did not respond. Of course they didn't. What the hell are they going to say? Millions of dollars every year to poison the brains of these kids, and they pick Donald Trump. To indoctrinate these kids in a liberal ideology, and they chose Donald Trump. Folks, this cannot just be dismissed. You cannot just dismiss it. Hold on, let me take a sip of water here. All right. This is a funny take on this. Professor David Campbell, Packy JD Professor of American Democracy and Director of the Notre Dame Democracy Initiative, commented that the results of the poll, quote, "demonstrate that Notre Dame students are a microcosm of the nation as a whole," unquote. That's not true, in fact. That's what is so astonishing. And I understand that that's what they want to say, so they can then claim that this is a tight race. But there are a lot of anecdotes now pointing to that, pointing to the argument, or the strengthening the argument that, regardless of where it stands right now, maybe this isn't that close. Yeah, I said it. Trump is a strong closer. What if this ends up not being that close? There are a lot of other anecdotes to suggest that. By the way, let's move on to a survey of a population that is, in fact, representative of the country. And that would be the Gallup, I don't want to say annual, cyclical electoral environment review. In 2016, Trump was favored, but not as much as you're about to hear. In 2020, Biden had an edge, a slight one, but an edge because of COVID, because so many people chose COVID as their number one issue, and because Biden had an edge on it, even though Trump was, leading or Trump was given the advantage in some of the other indicators. There were too many Gallup. What we're looking for, some of the gauges Gallup does that have predictive value. And right now, the 2024 election environment is favorable to the GOP. Jeffrey Jones for Gallup, basically writing that by Gallup's gauges that they've been using for years, Donald Trump, this is Trump's election to lose. And they make a good argument. Party affiliation, GOP issue advantages, economic pessimism. By the way, economic pessimism factored into 2020. Here we go. Nearly all. I don't know that this happened since like maybe 08. Nearly all Gallup's measures that have shown some relationship to past presidential election outcomes, so that speak to current perceptions of the two major parties, favor the Republican Party over the Democratic Party. In other words, all of the gauges are measures that have some predictive value, favor Trump over Harris, and in general, Republicans over Democrats. Party identification and leaning. First time this Republican, and by the way, relationship to past presidential election outcomes is very strong. The Gallup identification measure swung back to Democrats in September of 2020. Right now, Republicans are not only leading, but they have the biggest advantage that they have had in a while, a long time. Party better able to handle most important problem. Strong relationship, strong predictive value. Obviously, the advantage goes to Republican. Satisfaction, only 22% are satisfied. It's a moderate gauge, or moderate predictive value, but still, nevertheless, Republican. Economic confidence in this country, negative 28 index score. Negative 28 favors Trump. Also, moderate relationship. Party better to keep America prosperous. Look at that advantage. Moderate, again, favoring Trump. Presidential job approval. Moderate, again. I don't know if I would call it moderate. Why? Because Trump nearly won and they had him very low in 2020. Funny. Leading up to 2020, all we heard about was how bad Trump's approval is. And now you can't win an election with an approval like that. Funny, right? Now we have Biden's significantly lower than Trump's, and we're just not hearing that big of a deal about it. They pulled the old switcheroo, got rid of Kamala. Got rid of Biden for Kamala. Kicked out Scranton Joe, who earned the votes of over 14 million Democratic primary voters for Canadian Kamala. Party favorability ratings, again, doesn't really, because of the sampling era, there really is not an advantage here. It is Republican +1, but it's weak. It's moderate. Now moving into more weak indicators, preference for government activity, do less is 55%. Obviously, that favors Republicans. Congress's job approval, there really isn't an advantage there. But the party better able to keep Americans safe from international threats is a significant Republican advantage. Significant. All right. Party identification and leaning. We don't have to go over the numbers, but this is based on the average of Gallup polls that were taken in the third quarter, July to September, which is to minimize the poll-to-poll variation in party identification estimates and to provide a more reliable comparison across presidential years, given different timings of the two major party conventions in July, August, or September. Why? Because of registration and affiliation. The parties will, crank up efforts to register new voters. Affiliation is, of course, different than registration, but nevertheless, they were trying to iron out the noise. Democrats have won presidential elections in years in which they had a larger than normal advantage in party affiliation, including 92, 96, 08, 12, and 20. In years when the advantage was narrower, 04 and 16, for example, Republicans won in the Electoral College, if not also the popular vote. Here, not only we're not talking about a narrower advantage for Democrats, we're talking about a Republican advantage. Yeah. And there is a strong correlation here, as you can see. Democrats went on to win from 92, 96, right? You can see Republicans basically tie it up in 2000 after narrowing it considerably in 2004 after narrowing it considerably in 2000, right? It's a very clear chart. I don't have to go over this, hold anybody's hand. They won those elections. Interestingly, in 2000, Bush did lose the popular vote, but of course he won the Electoral College. In 2004, he won the popular vote and the Electoral College when it was an even party split. Of course, that gap widened again, favoring Democrats in 2008. And what happened? Right. Democrats won in a landslide. The gap started to narrow. It just didn't narrow enough. In 2012, Mitt Romney was a shitty candidate, one of the worst candidates you could possibly put up as a nominee for president. A plutocrat and a technocrat all wrapped in one. Astonishingly, surprisingly, nearly 4 million white working class voters were missing in the upper Midwest from the electorate, and he lost every single battleground state except for North Carolina. Oh, wow, we took back Indiana. Good for you. Then it narrows more in 16. Trump wins. It widens more in 20, Democrats win. Now it's gone completely, and Republicans have an advantage for the first time on this chart. What the hell do you think is that? What do you think that points to? But the NBC poll, I'm telling you, can take it and stick it you know where. Performance on key issues. This is something I've been trying to give you perspective on now for months. Over months, really. Talking about it over the last year. In our election model, this is wrapped up in what's called the mood of the electorate. What are the most important issues to people's votes? What is driving them? And then who has the advantage on those issues? Highly predictive. Gallup is calling it moderate, but we had a much stronger relationship. We do it a little bit differently. Maybe that's why. But this is not particularly close. And why does it matter? I mean, you're basically asking us to believe that voters are going to go to the ballot box and vote against the person that they think will do the job better. That's what you're asking us to believe. Some will, of course. That's how statistics works. And some will vote for the person they think will do the job better, even though it's not their particular party. Again, that's how it works. But overall, you're asking us to believe that the country at large is going to vote against the person that they, first of all, what's really important here is we have to note that he was already a president. And they were happy, or they look back at his time now and say that it was a success. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, who they do not trust to handle more on key voting issues than Trump, is now the sitting incumbent vice president. And it's a presidency that the public deems as a failure, to be a failure. They're asking us to believe that that person is going to beat the former president who people look back at with fondness and believe, it's peace and prosperity. The guy did a good job. Whether it's the New York Times poll or others, because they're weighting some of these polls insane, the recalled vote to me is always very funny. Somehow, more than 2 times the number of Biden voters voting for Trump than Trump voters voting for Biden is somehow going to result in Harris holding on. There's too many supporting data points. Anyway, the top issues Americans currently name as the most important issues favor the GOP, including the economy, immigration, government, and inflation. For us, it's inflation and cost of living, jobs and the economy, immigration and border security, in that order. Who do they trust to handle these issues? Trump or Harris? Trump, by varying degrees. The largest and widest advantage being for Trump on immigration, the second advantage being on inflation, and then the third, but yet still significant, is and has shrunk since they swapped Harris with Biden. Biden with Harris, excuse me. It has shrunk to like 8 points, but that's still an advantage. This measure has been highly predictive of election outcomes and Gallup trends dating back to 1948. Again, are we really going to do this again? Are we really going to pretend? Are we going to pretend again? Are we supposed to? I just don't feel like pretending anymore. And not that I ever did. I am sick of not giving these people the benefit of the doubt anymore. Like, how could NBC, and I don't mean to just keep picking on them, but they are cited because they're NBC News, even though they also are MSNBC, which is nuts and not credible at all. They have now repeatedly and recently understated Republican shares of the vote so much that it didn't warrant looking back and retooling. I just don't know how that could be an accident anymore, folks. I guess that's where I'm coming from here. I guess I'm just losing my patience with these people. You do that bad over the last 10 years, and you don't think that it warrants some kind of visitation on your methodology? It's like at a certain point, you got to ask the question. Do they not care if they're wrong as long as they're giving a beneficial narrative, right? Or beneficial optics to the Democratic Party? Sorry, I'm trying to take my elderberry gummies that Laura got me. They're also men's vitamins, but they're just cranked with elderberry. I don't know about you guys. I actually love elderberry. It's way better than oranges and vitamin C. For the immune system, man, ancient man knew elderberry was the bomb diggity. If you're going to be sick, you might as well have fun with it, right? Yeah, so this thing hasn't been wrong since 1948. It wasn't asked in 2000, and the two parties tied in 80 when inflation was the top issue. However, people did not accurately gauge Reagan's support. So the Gallup poll was certainly better than, by the way, NBC News and USA Today, all right, which also used to hire Gallup. Susan Page and Frank Newport used to work closely together, actually. Now USA Today is using Suffolk. And I'm not, look, I like David generally, but he's had some real bad misses lately. Let's be real. Misses that are certainly more favorable to the Democratic Party. Shall we go back and revisit Ohio last time, David? Nice guy, but come on, give me a break. The unlikely voter poll, by the way, Suffolk. So how do you come up with a Harris +1? What do they got? Harris nationally 1, yet somehow we're up 3 in Pennsylvania. And again, I mean, you could jumps right out at you in Pennsylvania. Whites, seniors, done. Turn the page. Robert is right. Like, the young college guy in like Center County is not working class. Okay, homie, it's not working class. I got a bunch of 18, 29-year-old white kids that don't have a college degree in Dane County. That's my white working class. No. The only time the measure was out of sync with the outcome was in 48, when Americans believed the Republican Party was better able to handle the most important problem, which was international issues, but returned Democratic incumbent Harry Truman to office. Let's examine that for a second, shall we? And then it's 12:50. I'm going to need to take a break. Let's examine that for a second. 1948 was Gallup's only major polling miss. They missed in 2012, and that's when they quit the horse race business. But they did understate Reagan. But for the most part, Gallup, talk about a real gold standard, in the universe of national presidential tracking polls, Gallup was it for decades and decades and decades and decades. USA Today, by the way, Carter +2 in the home stretch. Carter got rocked. Damn right I'm coming on tonight, Sean. Aren't you watching the show? Come on, brother. Hold on. Let me respond. You guys have anything you want me to tell old Sean? Our good friend Sean? Of course, homie. On the show. Pom by if you feel like it. Anyway, 1948 was Gallup's only big miss. What drove the big miss for Gallup in 1948? Anybody? I'm actually going to take a second. Come on, locals. Gallup invented polling. Damn right, Derek. They were the gold standard in presidential tracking. But what screwed Gallup? What hurt Gallup? Hey, by the way, on point, didn't I follow you on X? What did Gallup do wrong in 1948 that caused them to overstate Dewey's support and understate Truman by a lot? Hey, on point, unfollow me and then follow me again so you're at the top of my follower list. Okay? Because I can't, yeah, I can't find you. You're buried down in there. Um, it'll take me a while to scroll through it. I wish they had a search for that. I mean, they do if you use that tool that connects to you. I just don't like connecting any third-party apps to my social media anymore. I really don't. I mean, I'm hoping that it works, you know? If you unfollow me and then follow me again, I'm hoping it sends you to the top of the list, okay? Oh, look at that. Cool. The political affairs director at Notre Dame just followed me. Cool. Yep. I mean, I read your poll if that's cool with you there. Let's take a look at shall we see. Hey, Elon. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Method of collection certainly hurt them because why? Who did they miss? They missed Harry Truman's. Dewey lost because of his stash. There it is. Elon's got it. A bunch of people actually have it here. Right. The working class were grossly undersampled, and Gallup missed they missed Harry Truman's strength with working class Americans, and they thought silk stocking Republicans would carry the day for Dewey, and that did not happen. In fact, there's a famous picture of Harry Truman holding up the Chicago Tribune, which says Dewey defeats Truman, or no, sorry, Dewey wins, right? In fact, let me get that picture up there for you guys. Hold on. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Wow, I got a lot of articles about Gallup. Holy moly. Whoa. Okay, let's try this another way. I remember the title of the article that I wrote. It was carried in various places. I thought it was also on People's Pundit Daily, but it might have just been RCP and on Rasmussen Reports. But I could have swore it was. There it is. This is me actually in an article I'm looking for defending Rasmussen against people like Philip Bump and others who were basically saying that Rasmussen was right leaning. And my argument was, if Rasmussen is right leaning, then what the hell does that make the rest of you? Since you have awful track records compared to Rasmussen. So does that make you a Democratic polling gig when you're in the media and you consistently overstate Democratic support? Here it is. So this is based on the headlines: Dewey defeats Truman, and there's Truman laughing his ass off because the Gallup poll, of course, had Truman losing by 5 points to Dewey, and honestly didn't look that close as election results started to come in, and it was very clear that there was a miss. Gallup addressed that miss after the election, and they didn't have another similar miss. They did understate some people here and there, but let's get real. I mean, they were great at what they did for decades and decades and decades, right? Yeah, so I find it ironic that the one time here they are saying that this is a highly predictive indicator, high predictive value, this indicator, this gauge, And the only time it ever messed up was in the 1948 election. So what else would you expect? So we're the only way then, what you're telling me is the only way Trump loses this election is if not only Gallup is wrong about party performance on the issues, but we're all wrong. All of us, every single one of us. Trump is ahead on the top 3 voting issues. Trump is trusted more on the top 3 voting issues. Republicans in general are trusted more. It would have to be a situation like 1948 when not only are they understating Harris's support, but that would also explain why she's losing on all of these trust to handle issue gauges. There's a problem with that. The polling misses in the modern era have, of course, been driven by missing a certain key demographic groups that we talk about over and over and over again. And of course, the working class is a big part of it. Harris, by that measure, which, by the way, is also what caused 48. Harris, by that measure, is also hold on one second. Oh, it looks like we're gonna have a little surprise visit from somebody too. But in any event, the polling miss was caused in 48 by the same thing that caused the polling misses in the modern era. There has never been a situation where Democrats were understated because those groups, their support among those groups were understated. That is not the case. That did not happen here. In 22, but what about 22, Rich? Again, that was because of the realignment. And people, pollsters did not, and myself included, in Pennsylvania, I can tell you exactly what it was. The margin for Republicans with these groups, especially the working class, was sufficient. Their share of the electorate was not. So again, we would have to believe that Trump is not going to drive these voters out to the polls as he has both times he's been on the ballot. Does anyone seriously believe the working class is going to stay home and not vote for Trump? Does anybody really believe that? I mean, that's what it comes down to. Do you believe that's going to happen? I just don't know how I can take you seriously if you argue that. Like, I just don't know. The same thing goes for how on earth one of these election mafioso guys are arguing, well, they're dismissing that Ohio plus 14. Well, whatever. Ohio's just getting redder. Okay, that's not the way it works, folks. Just like he cannot win Iowa by the margin he appears to be winning Iowa by and lose Wisconsin. There are too many overlapping demographic groups. He cannot win Ohio by 11, 14 points and lose the election because Pennsylvania is going to go to Trump. And if Pennsylvania does, it's the ballgame. So, by the way, Mark Halpern is 100% correct. The only state in which Harris's own internal polls have had her leading has been Michigan. Okay? Her own internal polls have her down in Pennsylvania. Down. I believe Trump's was 3. Hers is upwards of 4 at one point. 4. 48, voted for. Put it out. Prove me wrong. All right. Let's take a real quick break. We're going to take a 30-second break. Then I'm going to come back, pay the bills, right? And then we're going to have a guest, all right, which I'm very interested, of course, to talk to for the monthly talk. The Fed rate hike. What can I tell you? I told you so. I knew the Fed was going to do this, or at least announce it to try to stimulate some kind of growth. The problem is it's going to have, of course, an impact on inflation. It's going to have a very real impact on you. Sure, you may be able to get a loan at a cheaper rate, but the Fed's a one-trick pony. This is all they can do. They waited until we got out of the summer driving. Cost of energy didn't spike. But now here we are. All right, let me take a 30-second break and we'll come back and we'll do more. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and share them far and wide. You're watching Inside the Numbers. I'll be back in a hot minute. Speaking of rate hikes, this would be a great time, of course, to take our break. And like I said, time to pay the bills, but also tell you about our great, great offers from our friends over at Freedom Gold USA. Look, the world's upside down, folks. I don't know what to tell you. The stock market is unpredictable. We all know how it is. Rate hikes, volatility in the market, all has an impact on inflation. So it's no wonder that people are looking for places to protect their wealth, to diversify their portfolio. And if you're looking to do that, there is no better place to look than over at our friends at Freedom Gold USA. What I love about Freedom Gold, I could write literally in a bulletin. Let me give you a few real quick. Number one, you know, these other shops, they're going to tell you 50K down, 20K down, 5 even, and that is even the minimum at Freedom Gold. Just not for you, not for watchers and viewers and listeners of the People's Pundit. Right now, they have a great deal, one of many, where the intro is just 500, and you'll be thrown into a prize pool. Basically, somebody's going to win some free currency, and that is legit. And we love when he comes on so he can tell us who it is. But look, the number's on the screen. It is a direct number just for us, but it would be cool if you told them the People's Pundit sent you. 888-279-3592. Or you can go to the website they have for us, which is freedomgoldusa.com/rich, and check out what other deals you may qualify for. There's a lot of things to love about Freedom Gold, including how they really just want you to have enough information so that you're confident and you feel like you're making a sound decision without the hard sell. All right, without the boiler room push. You know what I'm talking about. All right, and that's how they operate over there. You get best deals and some of the highest quality, purity gold and silver you'll find on the market. And also, even with these deals, free shipping and insurance. And with that in mind, I'm going to bring on Paul Cox from Freedom Gold, talk about this rate hike. Paul, thanks so much for joining us again. I'm a little sick, so my apologies to you. I don't sound very good. I'm not as sharp.
Everybody I know is sick.
I was. Kids, I'm living the dream. Other than that, as always, Paul, you know, I mean, the kids go to school, they get the crud, they bring home the crud, and it's rotating in my house. You know, the little one got it, and now the older one started to feel sick. The wife ran out and got vitamins with elderberry in them, you know, so we're all trying to pump up the immune system. Truth be told, you should be doing that first. You know,
right.
Protect your immunity system like you should be protecting your investments by going to Freedom Gold. I want to get your thought on the rate hike, Paul. I mean, first and foremost, that's what you got to go to.
It's you know, it's a Band-Aid, you know, and it's you know, clearly, I mean, I agree, as well as Senator Bill Haggerty said last month, that you know, they're artificially stimulating the market to at least ensure a fair battle in November. Correct?
Yep.
And you know, it's dangerous. It's so dangerous. And I wish, you know, the information that we're going to share today was more positive, but I can't, you know, every fundamental and technical, you know, red light is going off, and specifically with the banks. You know, the God, where do you begin? You know.
Well, I mean, the problem is they do this for, like you said, it's a Band-Aid. I'm not even sure it's a Band-Aid that's adequate, you know, an adequate size Band-Aid. Right. The gaping, or not even gaping, the open chest wound that we currently have in this economy. They want to stick a Band-Aid on an open chest wound. I'm not even sure it's sufficient. And then when they, like you said, the banks really worry me. We've already had a round of bank failures. It's almost like big stories come and go in this country so quick. They hit the American people so rapidly that we almost forget about this stuff, right? That we just have massive bank failures, the largest since the Great Recession. In
Mhm.
some cases, the worst on record. And then, you get these banks loaning again and lending at a lower rate. Maybe some people can get priced back into the housing market or something, like some, but also at the risk of a few things. One, of course, is worsening inflation. And then the other is when you try to then readjust or re-raise those rates, you can cause bank failure. So, like, they don't have a, they're a one-trick pony. They just keep doing the same thing, back and forth over and over again. I mean, it's
Yeah.
madness. Um, Stop
You know,
printing the money. Stop
what
printing
peop
money,
yeah,
Paul.
what people don't even realize, they're already bailing the banks out. You've heard of the BTFP,
Yeah.
the Bank Term Funding Program, P rather. Um, this is in 2008, I guess it was a certain process to get that money from the Fed. What they did starting in March 12th was to open this emergency window, if you will, where banks, institutions could, pony up their treasuries, the mortgage-backed securities, their agency debt, whatever it was, and you know, get loans and convert them. And they're getting these loans at par.
Yep.
So the typically they're undervalued. Um, um, what they're being compensated for, and this is happening aggressively now. In fact, I read that kind of knocking on that back window by the banks has doubled since March.
Jeez.
And they're playing a game that, and it's a horrible end game that they're playing.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, the point. To what end? I don't know how you don't see this move as a purely political move, just to try to
Oh,
shore up Kamala Harris going into November. And they
yeah.
don't even care what they risk to do it. I mean, that's the thing. They really, these are semi-smart people anyway. They have to know the risk that they're incurring. They just don't seem to care.
Mhm.
The politics of it outweighs those concerns. And you can go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics right now. I just want to show you this, do this round of their headlines right now. It's September 25th. Consumer unit expenditures, that's a 5.9% increase from 2022. But look below. I mean, 5 days ago, August jobless rate up 6 states, down in 1. Payroll jobs up 4 states, down in 1. Medical benefits is another for private industry workers. But look at July's job openings rate, down in 4 states, up in 1. Total separations up in 11 states. Imports are decreasing. Exports drop 0.7. And of course, the consumer price index, which I like to talk to you about all the time, of course, that's the rate of inflation, is up. When you look inside those, it's just the worst stuff that you could hit the American public with. Shelter is now a big driver.
Yeah.
When inflation first started to skyrocket, it was food and groceries, and you would see Biden walk to the microphone and blame used car salesmen. And it was unbelievable for not doing their job well enough, right? It was unbelievable how they would react to this stuff. And
Mhm.
now you have Harris talking about price controls. I mean, is that even American? Is that even constitutional? Can you even do that in this country? Price controls. I mean, I don't know if that's your forte, but I mean, this is just ridiculousness. It's ridiculousness.
No, and it's nothing is ever in real time. And I know we spoke about it last week, but I think it's important to kind of reiterate it. And you mentioned the Bureau of Statistics, the
Yeah.
inflation calculator. United States Bureau of Statistics. It's under the Labor Board inflation calculator. I mean, it's what it says is that since 2004, say 20 years, we've lost 65% of our purchasing power. So if you had $1,000 back in 2004, you need 1650 today. Okay, that kind of seems, people can wrap their head. It seems right, right. And but 20% of that growth or loss of purchasing power has happened since 2020. Now the you have to look at TARP, TALF, Operation Twist, QE1, 2, and 3, all the bond buying and spilling cash into the markets,
Yeah.
which made some growth in 2008. You know, these are these they never hit real time. We haven't even addressed the printing that began in 2020 during the whole COVID. That's yet to hit. And coincidentally, since we're also talking about gold, gold 20 years ago was $300 an
Yeah.
ounce.
I remember.
You
I
know, and
remember. Yeah.
and one can see how if gold held till today would have offset dramatically that loss of purchasing power. It's 2650 today, and the and there's many reasons to also couple that it's going to keep on. A lot of people think 2650. Oh my God, how high can it go? But
I
the
was just gonna
reality is
say.
there's so little of it in the world, respectively. People think it's if one were to compare, paper assets with gold, gold would be like a pinhead. Pinhead. The very few people own it.
I
You
was
know,
gonna. I tell people this a lot, Paul, when I talk about buying gold and silver, um, amongst other things, but particularly with gold, it's like real estate. God's not making any more of it. There is no philosopher's stone out there. That's number one. Number two, because yeah, it's appreciated in value over the last 20 years considerably, but you would have to believe that the Fed, that Washington is going to suddenly become sane. If you would have to believe that in order to believe that gold is not going to appreciate any further, like, right? So they would have, or and still would, because it is a limited asset, right? So it still would appreciate, but you would have to believe that the Fed is suddenly going to have a sane monetary policy. And that's just not going to happen. I don't care who's president, unless there's some very real, very major changes to the central bank. That's not, it's going to continue, unfortunately. I mean, these things, these bureaucracies, they're self-perpetuating. They're very difficult to reform or reduce once you let them become the mammoths they are, like the central bank now basically is. So I mean, I tell people those two things. If you're worried about it not appreciating in value anymore, well, Rich, it was 400 a troy ounce when when you left Wall Street, and now look at it. I mean, how much more can it go up? Again, this is not a stock for Microsoft. This is not, it's just not the same thing. And there's a finite amount of it. And also, again, the bottom line is the inverse relationship it has with these negative actions by the Fed. So the
right.
dumber they are, the better investment it is. And I'm not even saying they're just stupid. It's just that's the nature of this. That's the nature of central banks in general. So, I mean, I don't expect that to change anytime soon. So, therefore, there's just no argument against buying it. There
Well,
really,
more importantly, supply and demand, right?
yeah.
Unprecedented buying is going on in the central banks. Unprecedented.
Why are they buying it like crazy?
There's only one reason why they buy it. It's to offset
Yeah, that's right.
currency devaluation.
That's right.
And look, if you look back in 2011, this is when the euro was collapsing. I mean, for all means and purposes, the euro was going to collapse. at that time, if you remember, there was Germany was screaming, "Why should we be the generators of all this wealth here in Europe?" And Britain was, like, these guys, Britain and Germany were basically holding up the euro, and they were basically saying, "We're not going to play this game anymore." The euro was collapsing, and it would have. So I should also say that this is when gold and silver started exploding. And it culminated in April 2011, when it was well understood that the euro was going to collapse. Now, in this present day global economy, all currencies are interwoven. So all currencies were going to take a major hit. I don't think the dollar would have collapsed, but the yen could have at that time if the euro had collapsed. And if it wasn't for, and if you remember, April 2011, in the after hours of a weekend, the Swiss central bank came out and their minister pegged the Swiss franc
Yeah.
to the euro, saving it, giving it that buoy, if you will. And at that time, gold had reached 1900, silver went to 47. Well, this is what would be the logical, reason why, the central banks are loading up. And there are many precedents to this in the past, where periods of intense gold growth was also coupled with central bank loading up, hoarding. And, I mean, in the first 3 quarters of 2024, 1,000 tons were purchased by the banks, central banks. And they're continuing to buy. And, to kind of bring it down to Main Street, that's, our company, we're kind of the receivers of the physical gold that does not get gobbled up by the banks, or
Right. Right.
jewelry, reserves that are held, and cyclical, seasonal purchasing. That supply is coming off the market. We're already seeing the what's going to happen. And look, I don't have a crystal ball, but over the next couple of years, the physical ownership, with Main Street, where you call us up, and whether it's in your hedging your IRA or 401k with precious metals, or taking possession of it, and this portable real estate, taking physical possession of it, is going to be a thing of the past. It's either going to be too expensive, or it's just not going to be there.
They'll come for it,
Think
right?
about
Because they'll want it. So yeah, look at that appreciation. I put that up on the screen just to show people while you were talking. The CARES Act, I understand the president's hands, were at least one tied behind his back at the time, and it would have been very difficult for him politically to oppose the CARES Act. But I feel like that's Donald Trump's worst mistake. That bill, and then just ironically or deviously named the Inflation Reduction Act. They pump, even they do a second CARES Act that's unnecessary when Biden and Harris get in. They do a second version of it, which is totally unnecessary. And then they push through the Inflation Reduction Act, which, by the way, folks, in case you don't know, Harris cast a tie-breaking vote for that, widely believed to really have sent the spike at your grocery store. But a lot of this was in the works. Like Paul said, this stuff doesn't happen overnight. It's like a series of very bad monetary and fiscal policy decisions, over the last, especially since the Great Recession, but even before that, if we're being real. And you could see the volume just go insane, so, again, my point, like you said, you brought up, how much that $1,000 would have been worth. For me, there's got to be a way to offset that loss, and I sadly do. I think you're right. There won't. I see two things in the future. I see an assault on physical gold and silver, and honestly, others the way that they assaulted cash, right? I mean, they're coming and then they're not done with that. Even
Yes.
even crypto, but they're buying in such volumes that there won't be enough for everybody, and
Mhm.
they'll want it. They're gonna want it because I also unfortunately don't. I'm not meaning to doom here, folks. I'm just saying that I once believed that we could grow our way out of this thing and make sound fiscal policy to kind of, to couple realistic cuts with sound fiscal policy to avoid a debt bomb. I just don't believe in that anymore. The numbers aren't there anymore. Unfortunately, they're just not. We went too crazy, especially at the end of Trump's administration and this entire administration. We went too nuts for that. During the era of Obama, I believe that. So because I believe that, I expect, I'm sorry, but like massive economic calamity at some point. And that's why I believe you have got to look to other places, particularly gold and silver, but you have got to, because you're not going to have a way to protect yourself. Yeah, I mean, it
You
just,
know, yeah, you said it. You said it. You know, Also to couple some of what we talked about just now, in 2019, there were the Basel III Accords. And it was interesting. Prior to that, paper gold, like, GLD, SLV, and silver, paper gold and silver, um, were considered tier three asset, classes, in relation to the liquidity. And physical gold was considered tier three as well. Well, in 2019, they made physical gold held, whether it's in an IRA or, physical gold, like it's yours, you own it. It was made a tier one asset class. This created the ability for banks, institutions to hold physical gold to offset, uh, their loans and their liabilities, to be
yeah,
an asset boosting, boost of their asset line items. Um, this is significant, and you mentioned it, like when, look, if you could, I don't know if you've heard about the GRA account, the gold revaluation account.
okay. Tell people. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a line item on on the Fed's balance sheet now, called the GRA, the gold revaluation account. When I first saw that 5 or 6 months ago, I was like, "What the hell? What is that?"
Boosting their
And
hedge.
I had to go on to the a chat on the Deutsche Bank, Germany. I had to kind of Google translate the language to find out that it it is, you know it's what they're coupling this purchasing, this loading up of physical gold, the institutions, central banks. The gold revaluation account is, and listen, there's three other precedents to this. I mean, let me ask you, you're looking at your balance sheet of a massive amount of debt. And what if you could, take as much, put as much gold as you can in onto your balance sheet and revaluate it up? This happened in 1933, where they revaluated it 70% up. In 1971, they revaluated it 24 times up in 9 years. In 2008, think about it. It was hedge funds that were loading up with it, and the central banks, and they drove it up from in 2005, like, three 300 to 1900. That wasn't just, geopolitical risk and geoeconomic risk that was driving up the price of gold. It was also the physical gold being, pulled off the market. And the hedge funds were buying at an unprecedented rate. And if you remember, when gold bounced over $1,000 in I think it was 2000, late 2008,
Yeah, right here. Yep.
right? Bear Stearns, AIG, Lehman Brothers had already collapsed.
Yep.
Well, at one point, gold went to 1,090, and every possible fundamental and technical was pointing towards it was going to keep on skyrocketing. Yet it fell to 650. I remember thinking, we were like banging our heads. What is going on here? And it turned out hedge funds had loaded up with it to the degree that, in order to offset the redemptions that they were, people saying we want our money back, they had to liquidate their most liquid asset, which was the gold they held. It threw all that supply into the world market, back on the market, pushed down
the market.
physical gold. And once we figured it out, we were like, it's a buy opportunity.
Take it.
Buy,
Get it.
And
get as much as you can.
So look, there's so much going on right now, but this gold revaluation account, it would not be, it's such a small market, Rich, that even if they revaluated it 5, 10, 15 times up, this is to make your balance sheet look a little better, right?
Yeah. Square you away. Right.
The central banks, they're the, outside of the jewelry that's out there, physical jewelry that's out there, central banks are holding the majority of it. And if they revaluated it, not unlike what they've done in those prior cycles, it would make the balance sheets look a little more attractive, correct?
Yeah.
And this is there are, it's very concerning because for me it's very concerning because we deal with Main Street, and we're one of the few companies that we do this the right way. A lot of companies out there overcharge. They push them into stuff that is just not reasonable. We don't do that. We're there for the long haul, and we
very different.
We want people to take advantage. This physical ownership of gold, it's one of the last bastions of advantage that Main Street can take it, can grasp onto.
Yeah, so that's a really, and you'll remember it, for at least I do. You'll remember it forever, because it does give you that feeling that you're like taking back control of something. A lot of your finances are out of your control, and that's just the truth of it. I used to keep this chart in my office. It was a huge framed picture of what basically $1,000 investment in the market before the Great Depression would do. But basically just to tell people, not to hold,
Mhm.
Don't sell out of panic. But in truth, you're still a lot of this is just completely out of your control. And this is obviously it's a different experience, it's empowering too, is I guess what I'm trying to say. And you'll remember it the first time you do it. Anyone in the audience who knows what I'm talking about, I remember the first bar I ever bought. I remember what drove me to buy it finally too. I had, I guess you would call him my stepfather-in-law at the time, and he's former now, but that's what he was. He was moving, And he's a wealthy guy. He's a defense contractor. I mean, he had his own firm. He was moving to this house, Paul, that had an in-home movie theater. It was a ridiculous amount of rooms in Bel Air, Maryland. And he's moving out of his house in Jersey. I'm helping him move. Ironically, the guy, still had stuff laying around he didn't want the movers to take. And I found out why. I'm going in his attic, and I'm taking out the remainder of the stuff, and there's a black duffel bag, just like a regular, pretty large, but a black duffel bag. I go to pick this thing up expecting it's going to be a duffel bag weight, and it was heavy. And I'm like, Bill, what do you got in this thing? I open it up. It's Troy ounce bars everywhere. I mean, he's got silver, he's got gold. And he just started to talk to me about it. And he's like, I'm honestly surprised, given what you do. You don't buy currency like this. I'm honestly surprised that you don't do it. He's like, this is really the only thing real I have. I got a firm, the government, I get contracts from the government. It's millions of dollars. I got a beautiful house I'm moving into. I got the 3 cars because you like nice cars. He's like, none of that is real, and none of that is really in my control. This bag is in my control, and it was amazing. I couldn't believe he didn't have this thing under armed guard. Eventually he did put it in a safer place, but you remember it like that because I remember thinking to myself, he's right. And when I own my own gold and silver, then I'm going to feel like that's something that's in my control. It's not a piece of paper where you can get even issued a stock certificate and you can look at it. Oh, I own a piece of this company. It's different. You get physical currency in your hand, physical wealth in your hand, and it's completely different. It changes your perspective completely.
Yeah, the argument is always like, wow, I buy mining stock or I buy, paper gold, but people don't realize that the underlying asset that those securities are tied to is a fraction of the physical. It's never for delivery. And if they were to call those assets in, there wouldn't be enough gold to go around.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, we also, the last time we met, we ended with a comment about silver. People should know about silver as well. Look, there's a 55 to 1 40-year ratio between gold and silver. It's, over 10-year chart, 40-year chart, it'll follow a 55 to 1. It's never real time. Like right now, I think it's 87 to 93 to 1 right now. I mean, typically, if you factor that ratio in, silver, which is at 31.80 or so right now, should probably be about 48 or 49.
Yeah, it's undervalued.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, there's reason why it's as low as it is. I mean, people have heard, oh, it's manipulated. JP Morgan at one point in the, up until about 5-6 years ago, was the largest holder of physical silver in history. JP Morgan. Warren Buffett has been in and out of buying silver. He doesn't like gold. He kind of comments that, but silver, which has 30% of all the silver that comes out of the ground, goes into industry. AI, solar, circuitry, transistors. It's one of the top conductors of charge. And the reality is that unlike gold, which will be around forever, right, just banged into something else, right, or passed on, silver gets used up in those applications. And you can't, what are they going to do? Go to a junkyard and try to, extract the silver from hundreds and hundreds of keyboards and, thousands, millions, right?
Good luck.
No, so it's its supply is in flux. Not only that, but the all-in production cost for, say, gold, just to pull it out of the ground is about $16.50. No, excuse me. It's about $13.45 if I remember right. Silver, it's like 26. It's being sold for 31.85.
Yeah.
This is, and if you recall, silver, when it moves aggressively.
Yeah.
It's never
That's
hit.
I
Not
always
not
thought that's
only
the real reason Buffett liked it, Paul,
yeah,
because it moves, it does. It moves
but
fast.
check
He's
this,
a little more
Rich. Check this.
impatient with
I don't
gold.
mean to cut you out, but
No, go
cut
ahead.
you
Go
off
ahead.
here. But this is important. And if you take the all-time high in 1980 of gold was 850, right? Silver was 50. Um, and you punch in the 850 in 1980, put that into the United States government's Bureau of Statistics inflation calculator. It says that gold should be around 3,900,
Yeah.
4,100 right
Yeah.
now. Silver, which was 50 in 1980, should be 196. Imagine
Yeah.
that.
You are.
Imagine,
I'm glad you brought that up because it is under, it doesn't get the love and attention. It just doesn't. Gold is got a mystique around it, and people don't talk enough about silver also being, undervalued, whatever you want to call it. Most of, the people I know that have been buying gold and silver for a while, I it seems to me, I would say, I don't want to call them the smartest ones, but there's some smart guys, and
Mhm.
right now they're excited about silver. They are very excited about silver. There's always, you never lose interest, obviously, in gold. I mean, and maybe at some point they just feel like they have what they want of it. But the buying opportunity for them is definitely silver. I'm glad you brought that up because we don't talk enough about that. Frankly, we really don't.
This is
Gold gets all the attention, Paul.
it gets all the attention, but the you know uh, the math doesn't lie, and it's constantly, look, they're not finding the easily mined, rich ore anymore. They're having to go deeper, more esoteric type of mining processes to pull it out. And the one of the what was it I was reading the other day? Oh
I
gosh,
still watch the shows. I still watch all of the shows on Story, on different channels about, I mean, you fascinating stuff about how
Mhm.
gold is still, to this day, mined and extracted, and so how innovative some of these smaller companies are too in doing it. It's just really, you guys want to be fascinated about it, but it'll also help you understand too, why honestly it's better. It's obviously a good investment because of the work and effort that goes into it, and watch the troubles that these guys are running into. So when we tell you that this is like a finite resource, finite a piece of wealth, we're not kidding. I mean, the it's getting more and more difficult every year for these guys, and they
Yep.
struggle to stay in business. They struggle to stay in business.
Recently,
They don't hit their mark,
recently,
they're done.
recently in Canada and in the States, there was a petitioning to make silver a critical metal because of its need in industry.
Yeah.
Um, the I had like a particular look. There's no, I'm no prophet or anything like that, but I remember when I first got into this business over like 25 years ago, there were a handful of miners out there. This is when Barrick was just, the CEO of Barrick would, do an interview on TV, and he always looked like he had his sleeves rolled up. He looked like a guy who was in the mine at one
And
point,
doing it himself,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Now you look at them now; they're all, corporate, corporate, corporate. It's all bank, they're synonymous with the banks, right? What I've noticed over the last 10 years is they're buying each other out, meaning, you know, it's easily, presumed that,
It's the end of the little
Barrick,
guy.
Newmont, Scotia Yamana up in Majestic, up in Canada, you know, they buy, they're buying out the juniors at an unprecedented rate. like, these juniors, they borrow money, all for exploratory costs,
Yeah, of
and
course.
building out the thing, and then the minute it looks like it's going to hit, they get bought out. Well, I've often thought, like, how, if your objective is to consolidate, you know, you know, these mines, into, I mean, Barrick is the largest in the world right now. If your objective, wouldn't it make sense to keep the underlying asset as low in value as possible? My feeling is that
Yeah,
once
the British
they've
do with diamonds. It's what
right,
they do. It's exactly what they do.
wouldn't it, and it makes sense that, I mean, JP Morgan is the bank of choice for these miners, the majors. There's no, when it takes off, it's going to explode. I mean, there's no reasonable reason that it's as low as it is.
And
I
that'll
mean,
get out of their control at some point, Paul. It will, because the other economics, you don't want to call it an environment. They cannot control the entire economic environment forever. Even the central bank can't control
right.
everything. So they'll lose their grip on that once the rest of it falls apart around them, and then they won't even have the ability to manipulate the price or supply. Or I mean,
Right.
well, they'll try to manipulate supply. They'll try
Right.
that. That's really the only tool they'll have at their disposal.
Right.
But
You
they
know,
won't be able to. They just
right.
won't be able to.
I do want to say that, we're never of the, we never tell people it's either or, either,
Yeah,
metals or stocks or something like that. We always say it's both. You got to
yeah,
have both.
sure.
But the idea of, this is, people don't feel like we live in a very either or kind of philosophical, um, uh, uh, you know, uh, belief system here in this the Western Hemisphere. Very either or. We think it's both.
You got to
You
learn to
can have them
diversify,
both.
folks.
But and look, I'm not going to give somebody stock advice or anything like that. But look at the CAPE index, the cyclically adjusted price to earnings index. Stocks are ridiculously overvalued.
Yeah.
The highest it's ever been has been like at 44. It's supposed to be around 15 or 16, So right now it's about 36 to 38. So that means stocks are 36 to 38 times their multiple overvalued.
Well, I gotta, I
This
gotta,
is
stop, I gotta stop us there. It's a quarter
yeah,
two. I got somebody who's waiting in the queue here, but
yeah,
tell people where to go and what to do, Paul, and then of course come
absolutely.
back. I look forward to. I want to talk about that a little bit more next time you come on the show next month.
We have a couple of winners from
Yeah.
your listeners.
Oh, let's do it. Let's
We have
pop
a
off.
couple of winners of the promotion that we have going on with some
I
free
hope they're
stuff we'll be
listening.
sending. Two of your listeners. One is a John Carter in Georgia. Okay. And we'll reach out to him as well. And then the next individual is a Roxana Orta in Florida. These two individuals love you, and we're so happy that we get to give them this gift. And I know you're in a rush here, so
Super excited.
people can reach us at freedomgoldusa.com and slash Rick. So it'll Rich, excuse me.
Rich, yeah, Rich.
It'll go into it'll populate into the system we have, and they'll call 888-279-3592. It's 888-279-3592, freedomgoldusa.com /Rich. And we're going to, starting tomorrow, we're going to start building up for the next two winners.
Well, I'll tell you, I always get excited when you read those off. Hope they were listening. Congratulations to them, and we love you guys back, of course.
Yeah,
And I'll see you next month, Paul. Thanks.
you bet.
Appreciate it.
Man. Take
All
care,
the
man.
best,
Have a
buddy.
wonderful week. Yes, take care.
Congratulations to you guys out there. That's really, really cool. So I hope they are listening. And I can't, know everybody, and not everybody's active, right? So like it's always interesting when I hear these names every month. It's really neat. Listen, I've said it a million times. I kept him waiting long enough too, and he was good enough to just hop on because I want to talk about this state before we move on because of the polling that's out. But we'll end the show with it actually. But we got my buddy tonight that I'm going to be on a show on Battleground Live at 5. So he's on right now to tell me, look, you're in the Keystone State, buddy. I want you to tell me what you're feeling because I'll tell you what I'm seeing, from the numbers perspective. And I went over some of the Gallup anecdotes before. That was, by the way, folks, Paul Cox from Freedom Gold USA. That's real cool. He comes on, and I'm sorry that I kept you waiting with him, but he comes on, and people who take advantage of the deal they have for the show get thrown in a prize pool, a raffle, and every month someone
Freedom
wins.
Gold is great. Freedom
They're
Gold is awesome.
amazing people, amazing guys, and amazing company. And he has so many good things to say that you're just not going to hear on CNBC. But it's cool. And he reads off the winners. And I'm always hoping they're listening when it happens because it's really cool. I get so excited, every month because it's a good thing for people. It's a good thing. Yeah. So you're out there in the Keystone State.
Yeah.
All right. I really think we're getting to a place now, Sean, and you and I, no doubt we'll talk about this more later. I think we're getting into a place or basically entering it now. What Mark Halpern and I and others were saying a month ago, like, look, this is a heavy response bias. And the fact of the matter is, when you look around the map and you look at the fundamentals, he has an easier path than her. She has like one path for this thing. That's it. And he has multiple combinations that he could put together and post the 2020 census. It's just easier for him to win with the map and the Electoral College. What does it feel like on the ground? Because obviously you're in a key part of Pennsylvania as too. What does it feel like on the ground? You got Muhlenberg College out there today. That poll is tied. That is like a Clinton plus 12 poll, folks.
Yeah.
I mean, these polls never accurately gauge Trump support in states like Pennsylvania, the northern Great Lakes states. They just don't. So what do you think?
Well,
what's your sense with this thing? But
I've been on the campaign trail with Trump now for the past couple months, and anytime he comes here, especially in central Pennsylvania and western Pennsylvania, I was at the rally in Indiana with him. I spoke there. If JD Vance's schedule doesn't change, it looks like I'll be with him on Saturday in western Pennsylvania. This state, I did not run in 16, but I understood the demographic change in Pennsylvania in 16. I was on the board with the Trump train in 16. I ran in 2020. There was tons of excitement in 2020. I mean, an amazing amount of excitement in 2020, but we didn't really have the mail-in ballot infrastructure, ballot chasing operation in place that the Democrats had. They had an advantage over us there, in addition to all the other issues that were all of the other litany of issues with the 2020 election. So we won't get into that, but this time feels very different, Rich. And I think what I see and hear the most are people out there saying in various ways, look, I don't really like Trump as a person. I don't like the things that he says. I think he has an ego, whatever, but I can't afford life like this. I can't afford another 4 years like this. And this rally that we were at in Indiana, and it was just, now it's absolutely ridiculous. They has to be forced into these outdoor rallies because of all of these ridiculous forced into these indoor rallies because of these assassination attempts, which is in and of itself a form of election interference. But
of course,
it was, I'm telling you, man, it was crazy. I mean, we had people from, we talk about Charleroi on my show, a small town in Western Pennsylvania, being overrun by Haitians. People from Charleroi driving into this rally, Trump's bringing them up on stage. I mean, the place was just electric. And so when you combine that energy that is just really off the charts with the fact that we are playing the Democrat game with the mail-in ballots now, and then you look at the polling, something just feels different. So I feel very, very, very good today. Obviously that could change, but I feel good today.
I guess I was curious to hear your take on that because I guess what I'm, you do have all the changes, obviously, with mail-in voting and everything. It looks different than it did in 2020. Obviously, Democrats still play the game, the early game, more, but like apples to apples here, Sean, they're down from where they were,
A
and
lot. I
Republicans
mean,
are a
Rich,
lot.
they had almost 1.2 million votes banked in 2020,
Yep.
and now they're like 850 some thousand, which is still a lot. But in order for them to win and be successful, they've got to have that number in 2020 as a floor. And people are like, well, it's not
Floor, not a
analogous.
ceiling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
a floor. Yeah.
And it's not the pandemic anymore. But here's the other thing: Republicans, in terms of banking their votes, are almost at the level where we were in 2020, and
Right.
we're still 40 days out.
Right.
So it's just, I feel good about the game. I feel good about the Senate race. I feel good. I mean, when I talk to you, I'm sure you've heard people on the show when I say Pennsylvania closes late and closes fast. This
It
is what
sure
I
does.
mean. This is what I mean. You can get an indication of where this state is trending by watching and paying special attention to the polls in the last 90 days. Dave McCormick, 90 days ago, the polling did not look great for him 90 days ago. It
Our
looked,
own was Casey plus 13.
yeah, so it didn't look great. But now, almost like I think 5 polls have come out in the last 2 weeks that had the race straight up tied or within the margin. And Trump obviously is up a couple points in a lot of those polls as well. But I've been saying this to you since the beginning. This race, Trump McCormick ticket, very different people. Now they're aligned. I mean, they're campaigning together, but it has a Trump Toomey vibe, and Trump and Toomey won the state with a very crazy eclectic path. So we'll see, man. We'll see.
I get it. I got to give you credit for that because even when I did do that poll, man, that must have been close to 90 days ago, or whatever it was, right? And I remember talking to you about it like it was yesterday. Like, wow, McCormick really is, like running behind Trump badly. You said it. You were like, look, I'm just telling you, the state does close late, and I feel like this is going to be one of those instances, and I feel like this is like a very Trump Toomey vibe to me. And I was like, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my own data. I'm looking at data from different people, by the way, both sides. That Senate race is a toss up at this point. It is. He has completely lost his lead. That is not
Look where
good.
the Democrats are spending their money. I mean, you want to see what the Democrats are vulnerable. Like I've gotten these alerts on my phone of I got these alerts of different ad spends in the area. It just helps me, keeps my ear to the ground. The Democrats are spending a ton of money in the last 40 days of this race. Just all of these outside groups coming in and trying to really change the scope of the race. And they would not be doing that if it wasn't a toss-up. Exactly what you said. They would not be spending money here. And they're spending money here because they know that they are in a tough spot. And so watch how the Democrats spend, but also listen to what people like Josh Shapiro and John Fetterman say. Josh Shapiro, Democrat governor of Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, Democrat senator in Pennsylvania. They're priming this narrative. Pennsylvania is really tough to beat. Democrats underestimate Trump in Pennsylvania all the time. Pennsylvania is hard to win. So I don't know. All of these things, I mean, we'll see. Anything could change, but I feel good.
On multiple occasions now, Fetterman has said, in this last comment where he really pissed off the anchor at MSNBC, but it was hilarious. He's trying to explain to them, like, look, he's got a bomb with this state, and anyone who's going to be on a ticket with him, like, it's going to be hard, and the thing with McCormick is, I mean, let's just face it, McCormick, like Toomey, will appeal to some of these voters that Trump is having a hard time with because of that, attitudinal issue. But then he's also going to get the Trump vote, the Trump coalition vote. And right now he's polling behind Trump, but I wouldn't be like, it wouldn't shock me if he ended up 0.2, 0.4, 0.6 of a percentage point actually ahead of Trump, because he may get some of the white college educated vote that doesn't go for Trump, flirts with it, but doesn't. Maybe not. I mean, there would be some people who would say, but Rich, Northeastern Pennsylvania, Trump is going to do better in like Pike and, and
I mean, Rich,
Can
look,
be,
the most
but
populous Republican county in the state is Allegheny County. There
Yeah.
are, and just say it like this: there's a lot of Mitt Romney people
he's
here.
from Allegheny.
A lot of Mitt Romney people in Allegheny County, traditional old school Republicans that just see the Republican Party in a very different way. Dave McCormick is going to do well with those people, and he needs to run up the score in Allegheny County. He needs to have those voters. That's going to be a little bit more difficult for Trump, right? But where Trump is going to make that up is in places like Northampton and in Erie County and in Northeast Pennsylvania. So
that's why I got to tell you that Suffolk poll that came out, it's in left field with all the private data. It's totally in left field and with the private data that I've seen. I just a good friend of mine who's polling the race. I just looked at his. Not only did I look at his overall results, I mean, he was like, like give you the data set to look at. So I put it in Market Site, uploaded it. I got to tell you, I thought he I think some of his weights are a little bit too friendly to the Democrats. I really do. Like there are some people who are waiting, and I don't wait for party, but it's a whole argument to be made there. But he does, and he's still waiting for a more traditional Pennsylvania turnout. It's like when Trump is on the ballot in Pennsylvania. Democrats did have a turnout advantage in 2016. It was smaller than what they had in the past and what they normally would or should have had, but he won more crossover votes than Clinton, and that's how he won the state. In 2020, it was actually like R+1 in most of the voter validated post-election studies to see who voted and where. I think there's a lot of people out there that are like that Suffolk poll. That is too Democratic. I mean, period. End of story. That UMass Inc. poll, there's some arguments, folks, we can make. Like, should we wait for party? And there are legitimate arguments among and between pollsters. What UMass Inc. did was not legitimate. It's just not. We know what regions Pennsylvania, what Pennsylvania encompasses Pennsylvania, what regions do. And we know what regional definitions they should be, what media markets they are. Like, that's not up for debate. To play around with the media market weights like that, Sean, and say like, we're going to make this part of Philly and we're going to do this. And that was insane. And only when you do stuff like that, which takes heat from both sides, by the way. I mean, there were, traditional Republican consultants criticizing that poll, and there were left-wing, media pollsters criticizing that poll, because that's the kind of stuff you just cannot do. But they were doing it, obviously, to overstate the college educated versus the working class. And Pennsylvania is going to be at least 60% non-college educated. Anyone who doesn't have that in there is going to show a more favorable race for Harris, but it's not really. I know you're being cautious. And of course that's,
did you see the Fabrizio came out with a new AARP poll today, had Trump up 2.
I didn't.
I mean, like,
maybe what I actually saw before and Muhlenberg is tied, which should tell you everything you need.
Crazy,
to know.
Right? It's
that
crazy.
Doesn't happen, folks.
No.
That Muhlenberg is like a Biden +9, Clinton +13. It doesn't tie, right?
Trump
it doesn't
in Virginia. Trump is like,
yeah.
I've seen multiple polls that has him tied in Virginia. And Youngkin, say whatever you want, believe whatever you want about Youngkin. He doesn't say he doesn't say things that he doesn't know.
It's not bullshitter.
He's not a bullshitter. He's saying that Virginia is in play. Yeah. And I believe him. And the reason why that's important is that when you talked early on, when you brought me on here, you kicked off the interview by saying like Kamala has very few paths. I mean, she can't afford to lose a single state that she's supposed to win.
No, if she loses Virginia in some kind of an upset, we're going to bed. Because it's like not, and because here's the deal, folks. Virginia, there has been some problems polling Virginia in 2020. Generally, everyone did a decent job. In 2016, they understated Trump's strength in Virginia, and then in 21, Youngkin, Robert Cahaly, and I were the only ones who like really polled Virginia accurately. Everybody at Monmouth poll still had McAuliffe up. The ABC Washington Post poll, which Larry Sabato and his tiny crystal balls touts constantly is most accurate, they had McAuliffe up. All right. So what they didn't get is how many more voters in what we call the Shenandoah Shenandoah Valley area, how many more of those voters would vote, which don't typically vote in a gubernatorial election? Like, these guys don't turn out, and they did, and they drove that share of the vote much higher. So it was like him doing better in like the Chesterfields and even parts of Loudoun County than other Republicans have in the past, or any Republican has in the past, coupled with the turnout in the Shenandoah Valley area, the mountain region of Virginia. That together gave him that win. And I'm looking at these numbers, because we don't have party registration in Virginia, but we can analyze who is who and who isn't voting by vote history and other stuff. These first-time voter numbers are huge for this period. Like, they should not be banking their vote, which tells me that at least some of, because there is an effort by Republicans to target normies and low prop voters, it's not as robust as I would like to see it if I was advising them, in most areas. But in Virginia, they got their act together, man, after
They did.
losing a series of elections, and they really are targeting those people. And what you would, folks, why it's ringing alarm bells to me. And if I was the Democrat, I would be very nervous, because those are the voters you want to bank early. You want to get them requested, their ballots requested. You want to put them on any permanent absentee ballot list if you got them, like you do in Pennsylvania. You want to make sure that they get requested and banked, because you don't want to try chasing them down later. You want to leave your 4 out of 4s and your 3 out of 4s. You want to leave them for last, because they are easier to get to vote. And if you don't contact them and have multiple points of contact with them, their own behavior history tells you that they're probably going to vote anyway. Obviously, they're highly, highly likely to vote. So the fact that I'm seeing this many first-time voters banked, and I know Democrats don't really have any effort to do that, Sean, that is exactly what you would expect to see if we were going to end up with an electorate that I suspected we would. For my first time ever in my lifetime, I've never seen this, Sean. Those voters are supposed to be good for Democrats. And when it's higher turnout, it's bad news for Republicans. Like, that's been the story our entire lives. And, in both of our lives. And that is not the case anymore. So, like, you could see in 2016, Trump drove all these new voters that didn't vote for Romney or come out even in that election. He added a ton of new voters to the electorate. Obviously, in 2020, both Democrats and Republicans added a ton of new voters. I just don't know that I'm going to see that kind of an excitement for her. It's like it appears to me in my data that there are certain groups who are more excited to vote for Kamala. The problem she has is that those people vote anyway, man. They're high propensity voters anyway. Like, they're you know what I mean?
I am a partisan. I acknowledge that, but I also think you do yourself no justice by only being able to see through a partisan lens and not really be able to acknowledge the strength of your political enemy.
Yeah.
And I'm really trying to put myself in Kamala's shoes and trying to get a sense of where she's coming from and why she feels like, if she feels strong at all. But it's hard for me to see, her getting the votes that she needs to get to win in a place like Pennsylvania. I just don't see working class Democrats in Erie County and in Northampton. These are like union Democrats voting for Kamala. I just don't see it. And I think you're going to see that all across the Rust Belt. We'll see. I mean, the polls obviously matter to get a sense of where the country is and sentiment and top lines and what help inform your position. But like, we're in the execution phase of this now. And it's just hard. Early voting has started in Pennsylvania in some counties. And I'm just saying, it's just hard to see. I mean, I think she has a Hillary Clinton problem. And I think she has a problem of being associated with the Biden administration. People aren't independents. She needs them, and they're not stupid. I mean, life sucks under Biden.
Dude, this is why. Let's look at the banner real quick. And I know we're over on my time already, and I'll let you go in a bit here because I got to go too. But look at the banner here, Sean. I put
oh yeah,
it feels familiar here. This is, I don't want to say it out loud. I almost don't want to bring myself to say it out loud, but like, this feels very familiar. And I'm not saying that she's going to bomb like Hillary in some of these areas, like totally, but compared to what Trump is going to do, it's not going to be enough. That's the way I feel right now. And like you said, that could change. And Trump is very unpredictable, and that can change in a week from now or 2 weeks from now. But he's a very strong closer historically.
Yeah, and look,
He
it's
closes
like
very strong and quickly.
When I was debating in 2020, we crushed our opponent. Everybody thought it. Even Democrats would be like, "Holy smokes, you annihilated him." I mean, listen, man, we weren't like, why do another debate? We won, and they were begging for another debate, and they were using the networks to pester us for another debate. And I'm just like,
that's the game.
Here's the thing. When we were evaluating, we had a different strategy than Trump, obviously, much more what you recommend, right? Trump's guidance to his campaign. I know, because I've heard him say it too. It's just, I would debate anybody, anywhere, anytime. And I don't care about the moderators.
Not a good
the
idea.
American people. I'll trust the American people to see that it's fake, whatever. And hey, look, he won in 16. He won primaries, 1 in 16. I believe he won in 20. He won a primary again in 24. Hey, he's entitled to do what he thinks is right. I will just say I refuse to debate with the network where I wasn't absolutely certain of what I was walking into was going to be at least fair. And then all of these left-wing networks are coming out of the woodwork trying to bait me into another debate. Yeah, I was just like, no, no. My point is, campaigns that are winning, that don't feel like they're in trouble, they don't ask for another. They're not asking for other debates. They're just not, like, right? I mean, look, they're hiding her in the media for a reason.
That's conventional political wisdom, folks. 101. I think we all misunderstood who the undecided vote was. I actually think Tony Fabrizio caught on really quick to that. Because, he did. I mean, you can't say he liked the performance. He did not. All right. And from everything I'm told, he didn't. But I think he quickly understood who was really at that point persuadable and what each candidate really needed to say or do to persuade them.
Yeah.
And
I think that's what happened. Nobody in the country, Rich. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Nobody in the country heard a single damn thing from Trump that surprised them.
No.
Everybody, like, nothing that he said is that's Trump being Trump. That's what we had him for 4 years. Guess what? No new wars, booming economy. I could afford to put gas in my car. And like, this whole democracy is at risk. I just don't think it's going to resonate. Did you see the Michigan building trades guys? Like, hey, let me talk about the attack on our democracy. One of the guys was like, you mean on February 6th? Like, these people don't give a shit about that. They care about being able to put food on the table for their family. I don't know if you're able to swear in your show or if little savage children are in the room, and I'm sorry if they are.
No. They're at school.
It's just like, I don't think people care about January 6th. I don't think people care about the threat to democracy. Everybody know, but hardline leftists know that Trump was president for 4 years. I just don't think it's going to work. And you know what? James Carville is kind of losing his mind because
lost his mind on that call the other night. For people who don't know what we're talking about. There are some rather young and inexperienced people making some decisions in Kamala Harris's campaign, and they are pompous and arrogant.
Yeah.
And they are feeding people a line of bullshit on a call the other night. And James Carville lost his shit on them because James Carville is like, are you nuts? You're losing, and you're going to lose if you don't course correct. And they weren't listening because, let's face it, Kamala's never run anything good in her life. She couldn't run a campaign last time. She couldn't run a U.S. Senate office. She couldn't run the state top cops office. She sure as hell was not running a U.S. Senate office correctly. She sure as hell was not running the office of the vice president correctly when you have a 90% turnaround rate in the first year. In other words, people who are working for her in the office of vice president, 90% of them folks were cycled out within the first year. Nobody likes working for her. She's abusive. She puts her friends in charge of things that should not be. She makes friends shot callers who have no experience. And Carville is basically butting up with these people the other night, and I guess they weren't taking, from what I understand, is
reading them the riot act, basically saying, what are you idiots thinking?
Yeah. Yeah, basically saying you're gonna lose if you don't fix this. And he just couldn't believe the
He said
lines.
some crazy, colorful stuff like take this and shove it where the sun don't shine. I'm trying to
Yeah.
be like use the censored version, but
Yeah, expletives out the yin yang when he is aggravated and he feels like somebody thinks they're smarter than they are. Like, that's when Carvel will lose it, and that's what happened the other day. And I think again, they're starting, and this is why Pennsylvania is just so important, because he and those who are being realistic are at the point where they feel like Michigan is their most favorable state, which they didn't think was going to turn out to be the case. But they feel like that's the case, that Michigan is her best bet, because Wisconsin always does some screwy, like it polls to the left, but then votes to the right. It really is weird. But he's trying to tell them, like, you're going to be in a place where Michigan's not even going to be out of bounds.
let me ask you a question about that. That the Muslim mayor he's
Big
from
deal,
right? That's a
man.
huge deal. And like
Huge deal.
if you're like the uncommitted movement, right? And your goal is to bring about peace in the region, and you're sincere about Palestinians dying, which I think a lot of them are just pro-Hamas whack jobs. Like I just think that. However, you see major Democrat leaders like in the state of Pennsylvania signing bombs, right? And you hear if you want peace, you want Trump, right?
Yeah.
And I started thinking, like, is there a chance that Trump gets some of these uncommitted people because they're the ones that believe that he's going to bring about peace? I mean, maybe it's a bridge too far. Maybe I'm wrong, but
but in the New York Times poll, one of the other few polls that really detail religion, especially in regions where it matters, Trump is doing better with the Muslim vote. And which you would say small subsample, that's true, and that is worth taking with a grain of salt. But you could go back and look at the New York Times poll in 2020, and you could see Harris is underperforming Biden and Hillary by large margins with these groups. Large margins. So they're either not going to vote, or maybe we're at the point where we have to entertain the possibility that there are some defections. And in the state of Michigan, you're talking about an uncommitted vote that is the size almost of Biden's entire margin from 2020.
yes.
So that's how impactful it could be, folks. It is a big deal. And this was a group who this is why that mayor is significant. First of all, he's got a machine. He has a machine. That's number one. Second of all, him and political allies worked with Democrats to make that a Muslim majority town. And then when they did, it was celebrated. And then Democrats quickly started doing stuff and taking a turn in national politics that they did not like. You guys may remember the article I shared on the show about how they were fighting with the Democratic Party over transgender rights and stuff like that. Like, this does not work for them. These cultural issues do not work for them. They are not coming on board with guys chopping off their penises and women doing crazy stuff. Like, this idea you're another gender trapped in another gender. Like, that is not going to work with these people. Gay rights themselves, many of them have problems with that. And then also, I think it's an issue of, do I believe Kamala? If you care about the Palestinian state, or not state, I mean state of existence, like what's the word? Their condition. If you care about the Palestinian condition, do you know enough about Kamala Harris to trust that she's just not going to sell you out to the highest bidder? Like, so she's acting like she's pandering to the anti-Semitic wing of the party. She's doing that to get elected. Do they really know enough about Kamala Harris not to be confident that she won't throw them under the bus when it's politically expedient to do it, right? So, like, if the country turns against the Palestinian people, will Kamala Harris just, all right, I guess I am going to side with Israel after all. I already got elected, so up yours. And I'm going to, not be as favorable to the Palestinian people as I claimed I would be. So if you're that guy, you may feel like you really have nothing to lose. You can't trust her, and she doesn't align with you on your values.
Absolutely. That's exactly how I feel. Like, what do you have to lose, right? Like, if you want the wars to stop,
you got to go with Trump.
Trump has said this numerous times.
Yeah. We got to go with Trump. Well, what do you got for tonight, bro? What do you got for tonight?
You, Savage Rich Barris, coming
What?
on. I mean, I'm gonna talk a little bit about this assassination at this report that came out from the Senate. I'm gonna talk about Biden emerging from the shadows and doing The View again, right at the exact same time that all of these people on even some of these liberal networks are saying, like, well, I don't know if she's going to be able to escape the shadow of the Biden administration. And then Biden comes out and says, well, look, she's just, responsible for everything that my administration has done. I don't think that does her any favors. So we're going to talk about that. And then, of course, all the polling that you've got, complete state of the 2024 race. So everybody should be there tonight at 5.
I gotta send you I'll send you some like screenshots just for you, of course, because not done yet. But man, you got to see the state of Nevada. Like, I can't believe what I'm looking at. You got to see the state of Nevada.
I can't wait.
I cannot believe it, man. It's unbelievable. It really is. Like, I really did not expect to find. And then it's funny because a pollster friend of mine was like, hey, guess what? We're polling Nevada. I got a couple questions I want to run by you, basically, and because they're seeing the same thing, or at least some version of it, which is just insane.
Nevada is tough for me. I try not to get too optimistic about it because the polling always seems great. Yet somehow we can never, we're rarely successful.
Me too. I'm a skeptic of the state, but the fact is it has consistently been trending Republican. And I feel like now it wouldn't have mattered because the Hispanic vote is really a big part of this equation on how a Republican wins the state. And it didn't seem to, it just never seems to pan out for anybody. Right. This time just really does feel different. And Trump is doing so much better in Clark County because of it. And then also the voter registration trends. So the voter registration trends are really bad for Democrats, especially with Trump on the ballot, because just to make it, to try to put it in layman, when Trump is on the ballot, they need a bigger registration edge than they typically need in order to keep a certain margin, to have like a safe padding. They no longer have that edge. It has shrunk. They have lost that advantage so much that they are now beyond the danger zone. So like this happened in Florida in 2016. I kind of felt like the same thing. Like once you lose your eligible registrations that you can, go to for that like it's a pool of registrants that you can tap when you're in a deficit, right?
Yes.
They don't have that anymore. And the pool, the size that they need, they're like a good 15,000 votes shy of that in Clark County. So yeah, and statewide it's even worse. So it's like they can't, let me put it this way. Even if they wanted to cheat, folks, they simply don't have the ballots to cheat with that number. Like it's the pool is so small now, it's insufficient. So
plus they got a Republican governor, and I'm sorry, but
Lombardo's in there.
Yeah.
He's not effing around.
No.
So look what happened when Ron DeSantis took the reins in Florida. You think that Republicans suddenly started to get that much of the share of the vote in Broward County and Miami-Dade? No. Ron DeSantis was in there. He was looking over every shoulder.
Absolutely
he kicked Brenda and Linda to the curb. He made sure that those shenanigans weren't going on. And, they weren't able to say, oh, hold on, we found another 100,000 in Broward. They weren't able to do that. And they lost the same thing happened. They lost their registration edge. So they just don't have that number anymore to go to when things go south. They have got to rely on a larger margin, winning a larger margin among certain voters with real votes. And it's like, good luck, because the white vote is so Republican in Nevada. And now just to give you a little bit of a tidbit, the Hispanic vote is like split. So there's no way she can win that state if that is right. And that's
so interesting.
She's in a major problem. And I know I'm with you. I'm a Nevada skeptic, but
gotta execute now. Gotta get them out.
Gotta get them out. Gotta get them out because the numbers are there. You just got to get them out. Tell people where to go, brother, to watch the show and what time.
Battleground Live tonight, right here on Rumble at 5. Savage Rich Barris on the show. It's Savage Wednesday. You've got to be there. We're going to talk about lots of awesome stuff. And of course, everybody on the show absolutely loves when you come on. So it's always a fun time.
It's a great time.
And we got to get Savage Laura to go on one of her very savage rants. We've got to do it. Wait, what's that? Wait, what are you whispering?
It's her birthday today.
Well, you got to get her on. Okay, we got to address this. You got to have her available.
She'll give you a hand on
Yeah,
television.
a little glitzy hand.
Dude, you want to hear something funny? We legit got a message saying that they would pay Laura to send pictures of her hands. These people are sick.
Oh, like a creepy message?
Creepy.
I thought you were getting like messages for her to be a hand model for jewelry, like Dr.
No.
Like pretty and attractive.
No,
Without a
bro.
deep voice.
They were like, I will pay for pictures of her hands. I'm like, get the away from me.
You got to monetize in the way that you can.
Yeah, guys.
You know?
Sean said pimp the hands. Pimp the hands.
No, I'm
So
not saying
funny.
pimp the hand. But I'm just saying, you know, no, I can't even make myself.
$100 for every digital master. Okay. $50 for every knuckle. Okay. Once we get to knuckle one, $50. Knuckle two, $100. Knuckle three, $150 for the digital master. That's so
you've clearly thought this through.
I just made that up on the fly.
You're business oriented, man. That's so you're just automatically going to how to monetize.
Teach his own, bro. I guess, brother. Teach his own. People like hands. Some people like feet. You know, who am I to tell them what's right and what's not? You know, she does have pretty hands, doesn't she, folks? That's all you'll ever see because that's all so true. You know, it's crazy. I wish you would, though. I wish you would, but I understand it because she doesn't want people to recognize her. So, you know, we're in a Harris Teeter at Republic.
With Melanie. Like, you can't, you know, it's like, it's that everybody knows who she is, you know?
Yeah, she's not dying to do that because she does a lot of stuff with the kids and the neighborhood kids, like, you know, carpooling and stuff like that. And she just doesn't want. She's seen what's happened to me. Sometimes it's cool. You know, we're at the gas station and these two girls from Virginia passing through on 70 pop in and they're like, oh my God, it's the People's Pundit. You're the People's Pundit. Come over, take a selfie. My kids are like, who cares? You know, like it's just dad. Right. And that part is cool. And then there's a not so cool part. All right. And you know it, Sean, you know what I'm talking about. There's a not so cool part. And that's when some liberal catches you in aisle 4 and starts freaking out on you or something. And it's weird. Don't tell me you don't get that shit. I'm sure you get it worse than me, you know? And she just doesn't want that. And especially like if it was around like children or something, you know, I get it. I understand, you know, and God forbid, people are weird. People are weird. You know what, too? Last thing, and then we'll wrap it up. Steve Bannon knows the rules. Like Laura never gets caught on camera. And we're at a live event once, and they're doing War Room Live. So I'm like walking up like live and hanging out with Steve at the bench doing a segment. They pan the camera out and accidentally catch Laura. He freaking wigs on them because he respects her wishes like that. He respected her wishes. Like he wigged out. She was like, oh, Steve loves me. You know, it was so funny because they pan. I was like, you know, the funny thing is, Steve, nobody would have even known that was her. Right?
Right. Yeah. I guess. Yeah.
Until you did it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now. Yeah. That's interesting.
Well, I'll see you at 5, brother. Tell everybody over at the Parnell Battleground I said what's up, and
I will,
I'll see you at 5 p.m.
All right. See you in a couple hours.
See you in a couple hours, my friend. Sean Parnell, everybody. Don't forget to go to Battleground Live on Rumble, and I will tweet out. I will post it on Locals, of course, like I do every Wednesday. It's always a good time. You know, best 45 minutes on primetime Rumble. I'll tell you right now. All right, so or best hour. It's an hour. Yeah, I guess, let's see, 225. We went a little bit long, but that's okay. I mean, what else am I going to do but get off? And I got work I got to do, of course. But I mean, like, just when you're sick, would you just like mope around feeling crummy? No, thank you. I'd rather talk to you. All right. But looks like the national poll's almost done and funded on the public polling project. We'll crank one out this weekend. The Rust Belt poll is getting there for sure. I cannot wait to do one. I will also share, I think I'll be allowed to share Nevada with you when it is done. I don't see why not. And, you know, we'll go from there. So, October 2nd, we're going to have Dr. Steve Turley on. What a great guest. I love going on his show too. What a great conversation. We're going to have him on to talk about, obviously, the state of the race. He's got a great new book coming out. You guys will love. He's one of the better conversations, I got to tell you, in this gig. You know, there's, believe it or not, I got favorites. Hey, I'm sure everybody does. And Dr. Steve is definitely one of them. So you won't want to miss that. All right, Friday's Freewheeling Friday. You know how it goes. So get your questions ready and prepped so Laura can scoop them up and throw them over, and I can answer as many as I can. All right, so not, you know what, real quick, with 4 minutes, a lot of happy birthday wishes. I will pass them along to her. She obviously, of course, appreciates it from you guys, and I will try my best to make sure she has a good day where she rests and relaxes. We took her out for dinner last night, and then you know, we had just a wonderful dinner, and the kids got along great. We went to one of her favorite places downtown. It was nice. And she doesn't, you know, like me, just wants to have a nice day, and I'll do my best to do that. How much stock should we put into with Gallup's party ID? Very accurate historical with popular vote, and suggests a Trump plus 2 to 4 popular vote, which would be a landslide margin in the Electoral College. Listen, I am feeling like the most likely outcome is Trump at like 312, and the popular vote being anywhere from like Kamala 1 to Trump 2. And I know that you're not seeing that in the polls, but I'm feeling like that. I'm not feeling that is the most likely outcome he has. That's why anybody like the Slimer who tells you, based on polling and not very good polling, that she has, you know, a significant more likely, you know, a higher likelihood that she wins this thing than him, is just not a model. Because very basic, first and foremost, he has more paths. He has more opportunities to string together 270 than she does. That alone is a massive structural disadvantage, especially when the race, even in the polls that are left leaning, is so close now. And that it's September 25th. Go and look, folks, at 2016 and 2020. And actually in 2020, the closing of the polls still was a massive advantage for Joe Biden because they were finding just ridiculous margins. You're not going to get any Harris plus 17s in Wisconsin this time, folks. And if it's closing now already, and basically she's trying to run out the clock, that's why she wants another debate. I just wanted to show you this. I find it funny. So I wanted to put this up, and I'll end it with a tweet I saw from Cerno, who no doubt has been hot and cold on Trump many, many years. All right. But he put this up, and I thought it was worth showing to you. Kamala is behind, as I was saying, laughing my you know what at experts. She lost the debate. Her attempt to move the needle, I love guns, own one, and want to shoot a home invader, failed. Now she's playing to her base with the filibuster move. Yeah, I got to be honest. When Mike's on the point, he's on point. And right there, he's on point. All right, I got to go. Don't forget to, I think I did tell her yes for Jack, didn't I? I believe I did. Human Events 235, which means I got to kick rocks right now. Number love for you guys, and I will see you soon. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to share. If you like the videos, like them. All right? All the best, folks. See you Wednesday night tonight, 5 p.m. Don't miss Battleground Live.